The rain fell incessantly over Seoul, as if the entire city were crying, and the skyscrapers reflected in the windows the muted glow of a night that promised to reveal dangerous secrets. Atop Hansel Group's tallest building, CEO Kang Ji-hoon stood motionless at the window, watching the drops slide down as if each one carried answers he feared to seek. The clock was almost midnight when a subtle but piercing sound broke the silence, a notification on his phone. Unlocking the screen, he found a message with no sender, direct and relentless. "Your wife is not who you think." Ji-hoon's heart raced, and the whiskey glass in his hand trembled slightly. As he opened the attached image, his breath caught. A woman with her back turned, entering an elegant hotel, and something in her posture, even without seeing her face, made Ji-hoon believe it was Yoon Soo-yeon, his wife. A poisonous doubt began to eat away at what little peace he had left, mixing fear, anger, and pride. He walked to the safe, a symbol of his absolute control, but which now reflected the impending chaos. Memories and broken promises mingled with the desire not to be betrayed. He picked up the phone and, in a firm, cutting voice, ordered, "I need someone discreet. I want you to follow my wife, every step, every word." Thunder illuminated the glass, and for an instant, his reflection split between light and shadow, foreshadowing that this was only the beginning of a hell about to be unleashed. And it was exactly that night, when the man hired to watch her took his first step, that everyone's lives would change forever. But what he didn't yet know was that the truth he sought was about to crumble far more than his trust. And how would fate exact its toll on his every choice? If this story has already piqued your curiosity, subscribe now and leave a like, because what comes next will reveal secrets no one ever imagined. The man chosen to carry out that task went by the name of Choi Min-seok, a former military agent known for his precision and the coolness with which he executed each mission. When he received the call from a restricted number, he asked no questions. He simply responded with a "Yes, sir." While watching from the backseat of a taxi, the lights of Seoul reflect on the wet streets. He didn't yet know who his target would be, but he sensed that, as always, the truth he sought wouldn't be pretty. Upon arriving at the Kang family's vast estate, his image was lost among the automatic gates and security cameras. Now he was a shadow, serving a powerful and suspicious man. In the early days, Min-seok acted with the rigor of someone observing an enemy. He installed cameras in strategic locations, discreetly following the CEO's wife, Yoon Soo-yeon, and recorded every movement with the precision of a hunter. But the more he watched her, the harder it became to believe that this woman was capable of deceiving anyone. Soo-yeon lived a simple routine filled with silent acts of kindness. She visited an orphanage on Saturday mornings, brought flowers to her hospitalized mother, and always left a hot meal on her husband's table, even when he didn't show up for dinner. As time passed, Min-seok sensed something deeply wrong, but not with her, but with the reason behind her surveillance. He sensed the loneliness hidden in his wife's gaze, the emptiness in the mansion's cold corridors, and the growing distance between two people who had once loved each other. The report he delivered daily to Ji-hoon was a string of meaningless observations. Nothing suspicious, normal routine, no outside contact. But each time he read her name, he felt a strange urge to protect her, not investigate. Ji-hoon, impatient, demanded results. "Keep going. I don't trust silence," he said, unaware that that silence was the only vestige of innocence remaining in his home. And it was precisely in the midst of this silence that something unexpected happened. One night, while reviewing the company's internal cameras, Min-seok noticed a female figure crossing Ji-hoon's office. Her movements were light, her steps sure, as if she were already familiar with the place. He adjusted his focus and felt his heart race. The woman wore a corporate badge, but it wasn't Soo-yeon. Her face remained partially obscured by her hair, and yet there was something familiar about her posture, something that exuded confidence and danger. The scene lasted only a few seconds, but it was enough to awaken. In Min-seok, the feeling that the story he thought he knew was about to unravel before his eyes. The next morning, the CEO would receive a new report. Only this time, a simple detail captured on camera would completely change the course of the investigation and reveal the presence of someone who should never have been there. His name was Han Ji-min, and it took just one look for Kang Ji-hoon to believe he'd found a woman capable of filling the void he'd created. Young, refined, and soft-spoken, Ji-min was the picture of carefully practiced perfection. They'd met at a corporate event months earlier, a gala evening where fake smiles and champagne glasses mingled with the expensive scent of ambition. In that moment, when she approached and complimented his watch, the CEO didn't realize that beneath her charm lay something cold and calculated. She knew how to move, what to say, and most importantly, what he wanted to hear. In no time, she became his confidant, his lover, the woman who made him forget the shadows of home. Ji-hoon believed he had found someone who understood him, someone different from the wife he considered distant and predictable. But what he called passion, Ji-min called opportunity. Little by little, she began to study every code, every routine, and every weakness of the man who idolized her. It was as if she were silently carving the fall of an empire. In the wee hours of the morning, while Ji-hoon slept beside her, Ji-min would slide her finger over his cell phone, memorizing codes and accessing confidential files. She didn't care about luxury, but about control. Money was merely the instrument. The true pleasure lay in knowing that the most feared man in the Korean financial sector had become vulnerable to her simple touch. She enveloped him in caresses, promises, and vows of eternal love, while, behind her smile, she pieced together a perfect puzzle of betrayal. Min-seok, reviewing the office footage, observed Ji-min's face for the first time and recognized something in her that made him uneasy, the calm of predators before the attack. There was a frightening serenity in her expression as she sifted through documents and turned off cameras with surgical precision. She was a woman who knew what she was doing, and the way she touched the CEO's safe left no doubt she had been here before. While Ji-hoon remained blinded by passion, Ji-min masterfully played her game. She wore understated suits, impeccable makeup, and a voice so sweet that even the lie rang true. Between kisses and laughter, she hid the look of someone who had already decided how far she would go. When he promised he would give up everything for her, a barely perceptible smile crossed her face, the kind that appears when a plan is complete. That same night, as he left the apartment, Ji-min sent a short message with the coldness of someone closing a deal. "It's done. The safe will be opened before dawn." As the message faded from the screen, a new dawn began in Seoul, and with it Soo-yeon's innocence was about to be trampled by a love that never existed. What followed would be not just a betrayal, but the beginning of a carefully engineered ruin. As Ji-hoon lost himself in meetings and secret nights with Ji-min, the Kang mansion became a cold space, full of echoes and absences. Yoon Soo-yeon, once surrounded by laughter and tender gestures, now lived between the sound of her own footsteps and the distant sound of the piano, which she played to disguise. The emptiness. The maids noticed the change, the distant look in her eyes, the food served but untouched, the windows always open as if she wanted the wind to carry away what was left of her pain. She knew something had changed, but refused to believe it was cheating. Deep down, she believed her husband was simply experiencing stress, and that love would somehow survive the indifference. She cooked his favorite dinner every night, stayed up late, and when the clock ticked past 2 a.m., she turned off the lights and sat on the couch, holding a cup of cold tea. Min Seok watched from afar, with the professionalism of someone who should simply be watching, but compassion began to replace the coldness. Through the camera lens, he saw his wife sit at the piano and play a soft melody, the same one Ji-hoon had mentioned in a report years before, calling it their love song. In that sad sound, Min Seok realized what his husband had forgotten. Soo-yeon still loved him, despite everything. The recordings became a silent confession. No gesture of guilt, no sign of deception, just a woman trying to be remembered. Ji-hoon, on the other hand, interpreted the silence as pretense. "She's a good disguise," he said, ignoring the fact that the only real disguise was in the arms of his lover. One night, Soo-yeon noticed the reflection of a light moving through the window. She went out into the garden, and through the trees, she saw Min Seok standing there, holding a camera. He approached. Fearlessly, his gaze firm and wounded. "Why are you watching me?" he asked. Min Seok froze, unsure of what to say. In that instant, something inside him broke. He was no longer a simple observer. He was witness to an injustice growing before his eyes. Back in the car, he recorded a voice note for his boss. "Sir, perhaps you should look at who's really on your side." But before he could send it, he hesitated. He knew the truth was still incomplete, and that what he was about to discover would be far greater than he had imagined. That same morning, while Soo-yeon was trying to sleep, a silent movement was taking place in the corridors of Hansol Group headquarters, and what the cameras would capture in the following hours would make it clear that, in Seoul, real thieves didn't need masks to steal a lifetime. That night seemed like all the others, but at Hansol Group's main office, something was about to happen. Ji-hoon, immersed in spreadsheets and reports, was no longer reading anything. Jealousy had become an obsession. Every word from Soo-yeon, every unanswered message, every blank stare she gave fed his paranoia. He demanded constant reports from Min Seok, as if surveillance could fill the void of his insecurity. "Nothing suspicious," he read in each update. But to Ji-hoon, the silence was proof that something was being hidden. Tired of the senseless suspicion, Min Seok decides to step up surveillance within his own company, simply to alleviate the burden of guilt he feels. For watching an innocent woman, he installs security cameras in restricted areas, the personal safe, the meeting room, and the executive floor hallway. Everything seems calm until, in the early morning, a movement alert appears on his monitor. A female figure walks purposefully through Ji-hoon's office. She wears a badge and enters a code on the safe's panel. Min Seok's heart races. He zooms in and peers closely. The woman's back is turned, but her posture, her confidence, and the way she holds, her hair as she bends down to open the safe, are unmistakable. It's not Soo-yeon. It's Han Ji-min. To lover. She takes out a small metal folder and puts it in her bag. Then she turns off the lights and leaves calmly, as if unafraid of being caught. Min Seok pauses the video, takes a deep breath, and feels the truth slam into his stomach. He, who had doubted his own mission for weeks, now sees the name of the real culprit reflected on the screen. The next morning, Ji-hoon calls the security guard, demanding answers. "Is she still pretending?" he asks, referring to his wife. Min Seok hesitates, his throat feeling dry. "Sir, there's something you need to see," he replies. The CEO, irritated, hangs up. He doesn't want to see. He wants to believe his own version of the truth. Meanwhile, Jimin, the woman for whom Ji-hoon had risked his marriage and reputation, had already transferred funds to phantom accounts and erased digital traces. She was an elegant thief, with the calm of someone who knows that love can be the most effective weapon for the perfect heist. Min Seok decides to keep the evidence. He doesn't trust his boss, but he feels he'll soon have no choice. He understands that the game has just changed, and that when the CEO discovers who really betrayed him, it won't just be his fortune that's at risk, but also the lives of everyone involved. That very night, under the dim lights of the underground parking garage, a silent encounter between the security guard and the CEO would mark the beginning of the downfall. And once the truth was spoken out loud, nothing could be erased. The underground parking lot was nearly empty, except for the shadows of two men standing between concrete columns. The intermittent light of an old lamp flickered overhead, casting reflections that cut through the silence. Choi Min Seok held the tablet with the recorded images, his heart weighing more than the equipment in his hands. On the other side, Kang Ji-hoon, he waited impatiently, his eyes fixed without imagining that that night would make him face the price of his own blindness. "Speak quickly," the CEO ordered, his voice cold and sharp. Min Seok took a deep breath, trying to maintain a professional tone, but what he had to say required more than courage. It required breaking the pact of obedience. "Sir, it's not your wife. It's you who's deceiving him. Han Ji-min." Ji-hoon laughed disdainfully, a nervous, bitter laugh. "That's impossible," he replied. "I know Ji-min. She would never do something like that." But Min Seok just handed over the tablet and remained silent. The video began to play. The screen showed Ji-min walking alone through the office, opening the safe and removing confidential documents. Her confident smile was the same one Ji-hoon knew so well, the same smile he believed to be love. The silence stretched on. The air felt heavier by the second. When the video ended, the CEO dropped the tablet to the floor, breathing heavily, as if the air had been drained from the room. "Since when?" he asked hoarsely. "Since always," Min Seok replied, lowering his gaze. Ji-hoon ran his hand through his hair, paced in circles, and for a moment let out something between anger and despair. "I destroyed the wrong woman." The sentence echoed off the parking lot walls like a belated confession, too heavy to forgive. That same morning, Ji-hoon returned home unnoticed. He walked through the dark rooms of the mansion and stopped in front of his wife's bedroom. Soo-yeon was fast asleep, her face serene, her features tired. He stood in the doorway, watching her as if staring into a mirror of the past. For the first time in years, his eyes filled with tears. But pride wouldn't allow him to apologize. Instead, he went into his office, opened the safe and found some of the contents missing. Bank confirmations, contracts and a valuable jewel, all gone. The truth was there, raw and silent. Ji-min had deceived, manipulated and robbed him. He, who thought he controlled everything, was now the puppet of his own arrogance. As the sun rose over Seoul, Ji-hoon was no longer the same man, and while he planned to right the unforgivable wrong, the woman he'd loved enough to destroy her own home was already preparing her next move, a plan as cold as the look that had won him over. For days, Ji-hoon remained isolated in his penthouse, staring at the contracts and statements that proved the scam. The empire he had built with decades of effort was being eroded. From within, not by rivals, but by the delicate hands of the woman who claimed to love him. He felt ridiculous, like a king crowning his own traitor. Shame burned more than anger. For the first time, the power surrounding him was useless. Money couldn't buy sleep, peace, or forgiveness. It was then that an idea began to germinate. A desperate attempt to regain what he had lost. But not the money. Ji-hoon wanted to regain something more valuable, his dignity in front of his wife. He decided to observe Soo-yeon without her knowing. Disguised among drivers and employees, he discreetly followed her around Seoul. He saw her visit her mother in the hospital, holding her hand tenderly. He saw her leave anonymous donations at shelters. He saw her buy toys for street children and smile with them as if the world were still kind. With every simple gesture, Ji-hoon felt the weight of his choices. The woman he had doubted was pure, faithful, and strong. As he investigated her, she prayed for him. As he wallowed in guilt, she silently forgave him. That night, when he returned home, he found the piano open, the sheet music yellowed, and a letter that simply said, "I still believe in good, even when it takes a long time to return." He wept like a man who finally understands the extent of the destruction he has caused. But the truth rarely leaves time for regrets. Han Ji-min, now aware that she had been discovered, began to act with the survival instinct of someone who refuses to accept loss. She sought out contacts, covered her tracks, and prepared her defense. Deep down, she knew the CEO still loved her enough to hesitate to report her, and this hesitation would be her advantage. Ji-hoon, determined to make amends, asked Min Seok to gather solid evidence. "I want justice, not revenge," he said, trying to convince himself that he still had honor within him. But fate, once again, moved silently. While he sought to make amends for the past, a new trap was already being set. In a hotel, a room, Jimin watched the city through the window. With the same smile as always, he wrote a single sentence in his diary before closing his suitcase. "If I fall, he falls with me." And that morning, the game began again. Only now, the hunt wasn't for love. It was for survival. The rain fell again on Seoul, and with it, the weight of fate. That night, Yoon Soo-yeon, she was alone in the mansion, reading an old love letter written by Ji-hoon in the early years of their marriage. Her hands trembled as she touched the paper, not from anger, but from longing for the man she thought she'd lost forever. However, as she allowed herself to remember, another woman walked through the gates of that same house with very different intentions. Han Ji-min walked stealthily, her heels echoing on the marble floor, with a look that mixed fury and despair. Disguised under the hood of a black coat, Jimin had managed to elude the security guards. She carried a small briefcase and a flash drive, the final fragments of her plan. She knew she was surrounded, but she had one last move. When she found Soo-yeon in the living room, she feigned surprise, masking her panic with a sweet expression. "Soo-yeon, we need to talk. Your husband, he wants to destroy you. He said you cheated on him, that you stole the safe," she lied with a trembling voice. Soo-yeon's innocence prevented her from detecting the venom in her words. Confused and scared, she hesitated. "Why are you telling me this?" she asked, taking a step back. Jimin approached slowly until they were face to face. "Because I want to help you. He'll blame you for everything, but you need to get out of here now, before it's too late." The tension in the air was almost palpable. Soo-yeon's gaze was beginning to detect something wrong, a cold glint behind that compassionate voice. When she tried to retreat, Jimin grabbed her arm tightly. Her sweet tone disappeared. "Where are the recordings? I know the security guard told you everything," she shouted, pushing her against the wall. In the struggle, a jewelry box fell to the floor, opening to reveal the diamond necklace Ji-hoon believed had been lost months earlier, the same one that now exposed the crime. Panic gripped the lover. She tried to grab the necklace, but Soo-yeon held it, understanding in that instant who had truly betrayed her husband. The two faced each other with the force of two lives destroyed by the same man. The sound of a distant siren mingled with the roar of the storm. Then the mansion door burst open. Kang Ji-hoon entered, accompanied by Choi Min-seok, both drenched in rain. Ji-hoon's gaze fixed on the scene, the injured wife, the kneeling lover, and the necklace between them. For a moment, no one spoke. Time froze in the jewel's cold glow. Love, guilt, and truth were all there, exposed beneath the lightning. And it was in that instant that Ji-hoon realized that the hell he feared was not made of fire, but of silence, the same silence that would precede the trial in the vault, where the truth, finally, would have nowhere left to hide. The lightning lit up the room, as if the sky itself wanted to witness what was about to happen. Kang Ji-hoon took a few slow steps toward the two women, his breathing heavy, his face wet not only from the rain, but from the tears that insisted on escaping. In front of him, Han Ji-min was, still trying to compose herself, the stolen necklace glinting between her trembling fingers. Yoon Soo-yeon, who remained silent, fragile but firm, like someone who finally sees the enemy. "Explain this, Jimin," the CEO ordered, his voice hoarse, almost broken. His lover lifted her chin, trying to regain her mask of self-confidence. "I did everything for us, Ji-hoon. You never realized it, but she always kept you trapped. I only took what was rightfully mine," he lied, in a desperate attempt to shift the blame. Soo-yeon, hurt, stepped forward, her gaze steady and serene. "You destroyed a home, and you still call it love?" Jimin let out a bitter laugh, the cold sound cutting through the silence like a blade. "Love? That never existed. Only power. And he was always mine." Ji-hoon's face crumpled with anguish. He approached the safe, slowly opened the metal door and peered inside. Folders were rummaged through, seals were broken, and there was no one there. It was a symbolic portrait of everything he had lost. Not just his fortune, but his trust, his respect, his faith in himself. He turned to Jimin, his eyes burning with anger and remorse. "I gave you everything, and you stole even my soul." At that moment, Min Seok handed over the evidence to the newly arrived authorities. His lover was handcuffed, but even facing arrest, she maintained the cynical smile of someone who still believes she has control. As she was led away, she leaned over to Ji-hoon and whispered in his ear, "You've lost what money can't buy." The words echoed like a curse, eroding what little peace he had left within him. Soo-yeon looked at him, but without hatred. There was sadness, compassion, and an irreversible distance. Ji-hoon tried to approach, but she backed away, only saying, "Now you know what it's like to live without trust." The safe remained open, and inside the shadows seemed heavier than the metal itself. Ji-hoon stood there, staring into the void, while outside the police siren slowly receded, taking with it not only the thief, but everything he once thought he controlled. That early morning, alone in the devastated office, Ji-hoon understood that the bars that imprisoned Ji-min would never be as suffocating as the ones that now surrounded him. And what would come next would not be punishment, but the beginning of true karma. The following weeks transformed the once feared Kang Ji-hoonin, an invisible man. Headlines called him the deceived CEO, the millionaire betrayed by his own lover, the man who lost everything because he didn't know how to love. Hansol Group's shares plummeted, investors walked away, and directors began quietly resigning. That glass empire he'd believed indestructible now reflected only the face of a tired man with a wrinkled suit and a vacant stare. In the wee hours of the morning, Ji-hoon walked alone through the halls of the mansion, which now resembled a mausoleum. The sound of the wind coming through the windows evoked whispers from the past, and every corner brought back scenes he'd rather forget. On his work table lay the recovered necklace, the symbol of crime and punishment. He stared at it night after night, like someone staring into a mirror of guilt. While the world judged him, Yoon Soo-yeon followed a different path. She left the mansion and moved into a small apartment near a children's shelter, where she dedicated herself to caring for orphans and teaching music. It was as if she had transformed all her pain into purpose. The newspapers rarely mentioned her, but to the children she was known as the woman who smiled. With her eyes Even from a distance, Ji-hoon continued to watch her steps through the news he avoided reading and the memories that refused to die. One night, when he turned on the television, he saw her giving a brief interview. The host asked how someone who had lost so much could still talk about forgiveness. Soo-yeon smiled serenely and replied, "Forgiveness isn't about forgetting what was done to you. It's about choosing not to let it define you." Those words hit Ji-hoon like a sentence. He lowered his head, feeling the weight of his own name become a mark of shame. The pride that had sustained him dissolved. He realized that, in trying to control everything, he had lost what was essential: love, respect, and peace. The silence around him was no longer power, it was punishment. The safe, now empty, had become an altar of repentance. And as the clock struck midnight, Ji-hoon decided he needed to see her once more, not to mend what had been destroyed, but to return what remained. The truth and the apology he had never had the courage to say. The next morning, with the necklace in his hands and the farewell letter in his pocket, Ji-hoon left the building without telling anyone. And as the sun rose over the Han River, he walked toward the shelter where Soo-yeon worked, unaware that this reunion would be both his final punishment and his belated redemption. The day dawned cold, but with a clear sky, as if the universe had decided to grant Kang Ji-hoon a chance to see the truth in a new light. He arrived at the children's shelter just before lunch, wearing a simple grey overcoat. There were no more security guards, drivers, or journalists around him. Just an ordinary man, his steps hesitant and his heart heavier than his own guilt. The gate opened slowly, and the voices of children playing echoed through the courtyard like a cruel reminder of everything he had destroyed. Amidst laughter and music, he saw her, Yoon Soo-yeon, sitting at the piano, surrounded by small, attentive faces. The soft sound of the melody filled the room, and Ji-hoon stood in the doorway watching her silently. There were no luxuries, no trace of the elegant woman who had once been the mistress of a mansion. Yet she seemed fuller, more alive. The love Ji-hoon had tried to buy with jewels now manifested itself in the simple notes flowing from her hands. When the song ended, Soo-yeon turned, and for a brief moment, their eyes met. Time froze. The children moved away discreetly, and she approached him with slow steps, measuring each breath. Ji-hoon tried to speak, but the words seemed to choke under the weight of shame. Finally, he murmured, "I came to give you back what I took from you." He took the necklace and the letter from his pocket. She watched him calmly, without anger, without surprise, simply with the serenity of someone who has already understood everything. "You don't need this, Ji-hoon," she said softly. "What you took from me isn't in that necklace. It's inside." She placed her hand on her chest, right over her heart. He lowered his gaze, unable to look at her. "I know," she replied, her voice breaking, "but I need you to know. I regret it." She smiled, a small, sad smile, but full of compassion. Regret is the first step. The second is moving on without looking back. Ji-hoon left the box on the piano and walked to the door, knowing this would be their last meeting. When he looked back, he saw Soo-yeon hugging a child, the same gesture she had once used, to welcome the man who was now saying goodbye. As he walked away through the gate, the wind blew the letter out of the box. Soo-yeon opened it, and in shaky letters it read, "My true treasure has always been you. I only realized it when I could no longer call you home." The words hung in the air, and though their fates had parted, something told them there was still one last silence. The kind of silence that carries the sound of forgiveness that is never spoken, only felt. Years had passed since that last encounter that sealed Kang Ji-hoon's life in a way no fortune could erase. Time discreet and merciless, had destroyed more than empires and positions. It had destroyed the image of a man who considered himself invincible, transforming him into a shadow of his former self, reduced to memories and regrets that seemed to echo with every step within his own silence. The mansion that had once reflected wealth, power, and ostentation had been sold. The corporate empire he commanded had slowly crumbled, and the newspapers, which had once vied for headlines about his decisions and scandals, had long since stopped mentioning him. Today he lived in a small apartment at the top of an old building in downtown Seoul, surrounded only by the distant sound of the city, the wind blowing between the buildings, and the constant echo of his own conscience, heavy with memories that could not be forgotten. Every morning he woke before sunrise, mechanically making coffee, watching the traffic below, which flowed by with no regard for the lives passing by, indifferent to the falls, regrets, and losses of those watching from above. Each moving car seemed to symbolize the passing of the life he had let slip away, the life of opportunities and moments he had chosen to ignore, hiding behind pride and vanity. Sitting by the narrow window, with the steam from his coffee slowly rising and mixing with the cold air, he reflected on what he had built, what he had destroyed, and what he would never be able to restore. On a winter night, the cold wind blew hard against the window panes, seeming to whisper memories of days gone by, moments Ji-hoon had tried to erase, but which insisted on remaining vivid in his memory. He decided, for no apparent reason, to open the old box where he kept the few things that remained from the past, the reliquary of his own history. Inside lay only simple objects, charged with meaning. A stopped clock that marked not just time, but the exact moment of each wrong choice. A yellowed photograph of his wedding, showing a smile that now seemed distant and unreal, and a small golden key. The key to the old safe that once represented more than money and power, but trust, love, and responsibility. Without fully understanding the impulse driving him, he put on his coat, walked to his car, and drove through the wet streets of Seoul toward the abandoned building that had housed his office for so many years. The rain fell thinly and steadily, almost as if repeating the soundtrack of that first moment that had begun his downfall, reminding him that certain mistakes once made cannot be erased. Each drop that ran down the car window seemed like an echo of broken promises and invisible betrayals, and Ji-hoon felt as if the city itself, entire and indifferent, was watching every step of his return to a past he could never relive. The safe remained in the same place, silent and impenetrable, guarding not riches, nor business secrets, nor contracts, but the memory of everything lost to the pride, distrust, and vanity he had allowed to dominate his life. With trembling hands, he inserted the key, turned it slowly, and opened the heavy, silent metal door, as if he were entering not just a safe, but the very soul of his choices. Inside, nothing of material value lay. Only a single object rested in the center. The wedding ring he had let slip years before, a symbol of a love he had never known how to preserve. He picked up the ring, carefully, feeling the cold metal touch his hands, as if every decision, every word spoken or unspoken, were imbued within that object. He closed his eyes, took a deep breath, and remained still, feeling the symbolic weight of every wrong choice, every complicit silence, and every moment when pride spoke louder than his heart. There were no tears, no screams, just the absolute silence of the safe, a dense, redeeming silence that seemed to fill all the voids that time had failed to erase. Across the city, Yoon Soo-yeon walked along the Han River, the same place where, years ago, she had found strength during the most difficult moments of her life. The cold wind blew her hair, and the lights of the bridge reflected on the water like liquid memories of a past that had never completely disappeared. She closed her eyes for a moment and murmured a prayer, not for revenge, not for painful memories, but for peace, for a closure that could only come with acceptance. Each breath of wind seemed to bring a sense of freedom Ji-hoon had never achieved, a silent reminder that some truths only reveal themselves when one is ready to see them. At that moment, the sound of a distant doorbell rang in Ji-hoon's apartment, shattering the silence that had reigned for years between the empty walls. He looked at the ring on his hand and for the first time smiled with genuine serenity, unhurried, without regrets that could crush his conscience at that moment. The love he had lost, the pride that had destroyed him, and the forgiveness he had never asked for seemed to finally align, fused in the same instant of absolute silence. The silence of the safe, the silence of the soul, the silence that teaches more than any words. The imaginary camera slowly pulls back, revealing the light rain still falling over Seoul, the glow of the lights reflecting off the buildings, the loneliness of a man who finally found redemption in his own silence, and the certainty that even the greatest mistakes can, in time, teach us about love, forgiveness, and a new beginning. The world continued to spin indifferently, but the hearts that learned to wait understood that time never fails, that the truth always reveals itself, and that peace, when achieved, becomes a reward for those who dare to survive their own choices. If this story touched you, subscribe to the channel now and continue watching Korean stories filled with emotion, twists and turns, and profound lessons about love, destiny, and the price of choices. Each episode is a reflection of life, an opportunity to reinvent yourself and perhaps to start over.